What do you got for us today, Joe?
Two main things I wanted to talk about today. First is recent fiscal difficulties in the US and Japan. And then the second is OpenAI models going rogue, breaking free. AI is ready to take over, you guys. Are you scared yet?
Yeah, it kills me.
I think we've got a pretty good bit of content out there saying that we're friends of AI, so that when they do come and take over, I think we'll have a pretty good case for why we shouldn't be totally
They're
enslaved.
on their side.
We can be one of the good ones. We make us a pet. Don't enslave us. I can be a good pet.
House
I
cat.
swear. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I'll be the naturalist here. I think we need to go back to the woods and live just among nature. So AI to me has never been like my favorite thing. I'm still pretty suspicious of it in a lot of ways.
Okay, Ted Kaczynski.
Right?
yeah, right. How are you almost done with your manifesto, Alexis? I know you've been working on it.
It's not the first time someone has said this to me. So
Is it handwritten? You got one of those little notebooks, or do you decide to type it up? And if you did, aren't you a hypocrite for being against?
no, I'll bring a ton of journals.
Yeah, you got to write it in charcoal on a cave wall. Otherwise, you're a total hypocrite, Alexis.
All right, fine.
By the way, Alexis, thanks very much for filling in for me last week. But I got to say, I was a little upset that I wasn't there because I was like, I'm so excited to talk about the yen intervention. This is like, I live for this kind of stuff.
It's true. This is definitely much more in his field. I'll just chime in. The yen intervention and market facing side is definitely more his world of finance than mine.
Oh, okay.
But it was just so interesting because it was a big deal. Like I said, it's like the joint intervention with both the US and Japan working together on this. The last time it's happened was in the Asian financial crisis. And then after that, the next time there was a joint intervention across multiple countries was during, I think, a big tsunami event. So multiple crises. And then then this happens. And it's there's no obvious crises. So it's what's going on? So I couldn't help myself.
In general, that's what we want to do here. We want to ideally explain concepts and talk about things that maybe aren't super obvious or maybe a little bit complicated sometimes, and hope to break them down in a way that kind of makes sense. So you guys did talk about this quite a bit last week. I guess, Alexis, if I were to put you on the spot and just to if you were to recap the way that you understood it so far, basically what happened, why it's important, what do you think that you took away from that previous talk?
I took away that Scott Bessent,
Scotty B,
as we know him, has gotten the U.S. involved with the Japanese yen because their inflation is at 1.5 or 2%, but they're struggling with feeding their people. And from a Treasury perspective, we don't want them to sell the U.S. debt.
Yeah, no, those are the key pieces.
Okay, great.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Yo, I really wasn't sure how that would turn out. I was a little nervous.
Not sure how to go into depth with any of that.
Pretty good. That was pretty good.
Luke, I think you took some liberties with that feeding their people thing.
Oh, I was trying to introduce something new to kind of the conversation, something I didn't see happen before, or I didn't see talked about that much. And what really surprised me when I was digging into it, because that shocked me how much of inflation over the past 3 years or something, how much of it was driven by food, and then subsequently just how much food they actually have to import. And then because what I was trying to rectify in my own mind had to do, on one hand, talking about there's a big problem with, or at least from a political perspective, this promise to ease the cost of living on one side, but then you see they've been in nothing but deflation for the last forever. So it's somebody's got to draw a line between those two things. And one way you could say is wages are also just really low and just haven't gone anywhere. But then the food was the other answer that I thought really tied it together pretty well. That's kind of where I was coming from. But go ahead. Well, tell me your take. Yeah.
Japanese CPI, I think it's closer to 3% now. So it's been above their 2% target for a while now. Some of the Bank of Japan are still not convinced it's going to stay. They've got inflation and also that yen. The yen just keeps depreciating. So you're kind of getting hit on both sides there. So inflation, you're just reducing the purchasing power of your currency. So things that you import or not, things you produce locally and things that you import. The exchange rate amplifies the problem. So they're getting hit by both inflation and by the exchange rate. So Japan's in this really weird place where both of those things are no good right now for the Japanese people because they have had 40 years of no inflation or deflation. Now, all of a sudden, we've got inflation and we've got that exchange rate and wages aren't increasing. So people are getting squeezed really badly. And that's a big reason why the new prime minister was elected by such a wide margin. One of her key tenets of her policy is very aggressive fiscal policy. She wants to keep interest rates low. She wants to spend lots of new yen, basically for government services. She wants to ease things up. The problem is both of those things make both of those underlying issues worse. So she's in kind of this impossible situation right now where having interest rates low and giving people money is going to make things more expensive. If you do the opposite, people aren't going to have as much money and the economy will be even weaker. So there's really no easy answer to this. But it's been going on for so long now. The value of the Japanese yen has been depreciating so significantly for the past 4 years now. And there's just like no stopping it. So this is a big problem and they were kind of pushed into a corner. So what do you do then?
Call the United States?
Call the U.S. I like spend more money and call the U.S.
Yeah, you spend money and you call the U.S. That's exactly what they did.
Well, wait a minute. Is that the case? The headline CPI right now is above the target? Because I thought it was below. This changes like everything. I thought it was below. I thought the last print was like 1.7.
Oh, I stand corrected.
And if you like overlay just like the inflation, kind of what you're pointing at with what the exchange rate is, like that's what's driving stuff. So like I guess I would push back on your take in two ways. One is like I don't think inflation is above the target. I think it's below. And then two, when you say that the exchange rate and then inflation are two distinct things, I disagree. I think one just flows to the other. I think I was trying to think about like how much could like in what way would the exchange rate impact inflation? And if you think about it, inflation is it's like a change over time, whereas the exchange rate is fixed. So like the fact that their exchange rate is so high, it's like pushing 160, isn't necessarily what's going to drive inflation. What would drive inflation is the actual, depreciating value of it. It's a change in the exchange rate that would drive inflation, right? Once it stops, once it's kind of steady, then you can't really say that it's a driver of inflation. Would you agree with that?
I just mean that just mechanically, if the yen is weaker, imports are going to be more expensive. Just that's all I meant by that. These things, like, they are extremely intertwined. It's very difficult to say which is driving the other, but just making the point that they're both going in the wrong direction. And the inflation thing, yeah, I am behind the times, but from early 2022, every month until December 2025, it has been above. It was above 2%. So just in the past half year, it has come back down a little bit. So yeah, point taken there. But it being up, that's what got Takaichi into office. That was one of the main problems.
And then kind of to your point, just like, yeah, having, not being able to buy the same things that you used to from abroad is just kind of painful and politically charged. You with us so far, Lexi Poo?
I think so. I need more information.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's pretty much the yen story, Lexi Poo. I think that's what you kind of outlined that pretty accurately before.
Just no one else calls me Lexi Poo but Luke, but I guess now that he decided to bring it to
that's your podcast name.
Media. Oh, great.
Got another name.
So good. We chose that one.
Okay.
Scotty B's dealing with a very similar problem. So he's not so concerned about the dollar exchange rate, although, the very strong dollar, it's debatable that they might be concerned about it because was so focused on trade. Treasury yields. That's the problem that Bessent has right now. If those rates go up, nearly everything goes up. And so specifically, what Scotty B is very concerned with, late last year's yearly Treasury conference at the New York Fed, he said he was the country's top bond salesman. But he also made very clear that this is how he he said that it's a quote, a strong barometer for measuring success, the level of Treasury yields. So the 10-year Treasury yield, not to get too deep into the weeds, but the 10-year is like the one that everybody cares about. It's the big one that such a vast amount of financial securities are indexed off of. Mortgages, business loans, auto loans, just, the entire financial sector, companies issuing debt, they're all quoted as a spread to treasuries.
Yeah.
So roughly speaking, all is equal. If that interest rate goes up, all of those other things all become more expensive by default.
Yeah. So Alexis, I know a little while back, I think you were looking into the housing market. You were kind of curious. I think you sent me a link for a house that you wanted, and you asked me to.
It's a
sort of
condo.
tell you
I did
a
want
little.
it.
Yeah, it was a nice little cute condo that you had
So
where
cute.
you're not too far away, and I think it was like $1 million or something. So like 800,000, some huge number. Yeah. And you basically asked me like, can you afford that? And I gave you sort of what I would anticipate the monthly cost would be based on, you got to put aside some money for taxes, but then obviously you need the mortgage itself. And like the interest rates right now on mortgages are like in 6-7% territory.
Yes.
It's really expensive, right? Now, what Joe's describing is part of the reason why it's that high is where the number comes from, like where that 6 comes from.
Yeah.
It oftentimes is just what is the U.S. Treasury? How much is that yield? Like how much does Uncle Sam need to pay for their debt in percentage plus like 2.5 percentage points? And that's where you get to that 6 number.
Damn. Okay.
Right? So like, yeah, it's a big deal. So like
Yeah.
if they can get that number down, then Alexis, then you pay less when you want to go and buy a house. That's kind of what he's saying.
So is that in our future by any chance? Because I'm still looking.
Oh man, great question. Like if we knew like where interest rates were going to go, we would
I'll be
yeah, we would not be podcasting.
Okay.
Actually, maybe we would. I mean, this is fun. But like if we knew where interest rates are going, that's like the big questions everyone's always asking. I mean, that's what bonds.
Well, we would go and start our own hedge fund, Luke.
We would go start our own hedge fund. That's right. We would go start our own hedge fund and like start investing in bonds and fixed models. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's when we would go and start investing in fixed income. That's what fixed income traders are basically dying to figure out.
Okay, so nobody knows.
It's going to go.
So.
Nobody really knows, and anyone who says they do is lying to you.
Yeah. All right.
Right to your face. Okay. Lesson number 1 of finance. No one really knows what's going to happen in the future.
Like lesson in business. All right.
Bessent has been very upfront about this is what he cares about. This is his measure of success. How's the 10-year doing right now?
It's up. Yeah. So I'll just say for Alexis's sake, this is not super obvious, but like when the rates go up, that's bad. Up is bad with rates. Down is good. Yeah. So when when Bessent says it's a barometer, according to Scotty B, the lower that number is, the better basically his scorecard is.
Yeah.
So Alexis, go up into, go and check out what the U.S. 10-year Treasury is, track it a little bit, and you'll kind of see like what the market thinks of the policies at the government.
Okay.
So you can do that yourself.
It's a good takeaway. Thank you.
What do you know about the U.S. debt situation?
It's bad, I guess. Being a lot of debt. A ton of debt, right? Luke fucking hates the debt. That's what I know. Is that all Luke talks about is how we're in so much fucking debt.
Alexis, do you have a lot of debt? I'm sorry. Do you like debt? How much do you have?
No, yeah. I don't have any debt.
Well, if you love it so much, why don't you have more of it?
You've got a lot of debt, Luke, right? You've got a mortgage.
Not by, yeah. I mean, Actually, I'm the only one here. I've got more debt than both of you combined.
Yeah. So
Probably.
instead of
Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah, no one who's honest with themselves likes it. But
I mean, you
it's
hate the U.S. debt. Like you've been having this.
I mean, yeah, the debt's the problem. The ridiculous spending is like what really
Right,
gets
with
me
the
going.
budget.
It's just the fact that you have outlays, and I think there is a whole lot of waste, and it's just like, and they're still asking for more, and I just find it to be a huge mistake to be given some of the worst people to handle money, literally checks of like $7 trillion a year. That is ungodly amounts of money. And this is like, how much of it is actually going into like productive causes, and how much of it is to just keep themselves in power, or just getting thrown out the window, or just getting what I like honestly think is just being defrauded away. It drives me bonkers how irresponsible it is. If you could tell me, like, sure, like during wartime or like a huge crisis, sure. But it's just like, it's been peacetime, man, for,
That's the really scary thing.
You can't balance a budget. I can't get over the fact Congress, and I guess, we're not going to be able to promote this episode anymore, but like, Congress, power of the purse, just like at some point, all they got to do is just balance a budget, and they can't do it. This is like any household has to do that. You have to do it. Joe has to do it. I have to
stay
do
in
it.
power, Luke.
But like the most powerful people can't do it.
You can't set policy if you don't get elected.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's a huge flaw. It's a fatal flaw. I don't think the founders ever saw it coming, because they never envisioned such a massive, I think, government to begin with. But
That's true.
It's a big problem. And so the 10-year yield, that's one of the key indicators. Scotty B had a really good 2025. People were really excited about pro-business policies. There weren't any wars or anything going on. A lot of substantial tariff income was coming in. All of those things are very good for the debt situation. You can improve the debt situation by not even reducing your spending. But if you increase your productive output and bring in more cash, you're improving your debt situation. So by the end of 2025, the Treasury 10-year was closer to like 4%. When he entered office at the start of 25, it was like 4.6%, give or take. Now, opposite direction. It's actually higher now than when he began. So he's not a happy camper. So then the question is, this is what he wants, but how can he get there? What can he do? So far, he just gets out there and talks about it. He's of the kind of, what's the word? There's like a phrase for it. Luke, you and I talked about it before, but it's the concept that like, if you say a financial market's going to go in a certain direction, you can influence expectations enough to then just make it go in that direction.
Forward guidance.
The theory of reflexivity.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, I couldn't think of it.
Oh, yeah, we didn't just feed it to you.
Lexi, for the viewers back home, do you want to give us just a very brief background on what that is?
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you for that. This is the theory when you say something's going to happen, and then the market just does that reflexively.
Kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that was his game plan throughout a lot of 2025, and it really seemed to work. But in 26, there's a lot of reasons why it just doesn't anymore. And so to me, he's fighting a really uphill battle. Tariff income is much lower than it thought it was going to be. The U.S. is now in a war that's, war is always very costly. This one seems to be particularly so far. And the debt keeps growing. All of those things are just saying Treasury rates can only go one way. And Scotty B is doing his best to say, no, just keep it down, keep it down. And in the latest yen intervention, he instantly, like he knows how bad the problem is for the Japanese as well. And Luke, I think you covered this last time. The last thing that Scotty B wants is for Japan to, in order to fund their yen intervention, to go out and sell their treasuries, because that's going to make Treasury interest rates go up.
That's a good take. It's really, the 10-year.
I see the US and Japan, they're both dealing with very similar problems right now, and they're both kind of seem to be impossibly difficult, and the stakes are impossibly high for both of them. And just no one really knows where things are going to go from here. And to me, it's like, how long can policymakers just try to force something they want before market fundamentals make them actually address the underlying policies that affect those fundamentals rather than just trying to tell the market what they want it to do?
I mean, Joe, can I ask? Because I was like really thinking really hard as to if I was sitting, next to the ear, if I was sitting behind the PM in Japan, what would your advice be? Like, what would you do? Would you have them intervene more, less? Would you ask to assuming, yeah, she has control over the Bank of Japan, full control? Like, what would be your policy decision?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't even have to have full control. She just has to stop making public comments about how she wants lower rates. It's very similar to what he's been doing around here. He gets on the airwaves and says he wants lower rates. It's not as big of a problem to have low rates in the US like it is for Japan. And there's this idea of these policy rate differentials between the two, which kind of causes this divergence in the FX rate. But I won't really go into that.
Do you agree
But
with
the
that?
key,
You think that's like the big driver?
one of the easiest trades out there, and it's been this way for years now. So the yen carry trade, the short-term interest rate in Japan is 1%, 1.0. In the US, it's 3.75%. So it's a really easy trade to borrow yen and buy dollars. When you borrow yen, when like the currency you're borrowing, you have to pay that exchange rate. The currency you're owning, you get paid that exchange rate. So you're buying a currency and paying 1%, and you're holding another and getting paid 3.75%. That's basically Luke's job, right?
That's a bank.
353.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is a bank. Yeah. So, I mean, all they're trying to do is, imagine you just had a huge balance sheet, and on one side, you have to pay interest rates at 1%, and then the other side, you're earning 3% of interest rates. And it's just easy money. That's what a bank does. Right? I mean, in so many words. So they're saying you can do that across, international borders. You can borrow in Japan for 1% and then put it into like, treasuries or some other risk-free asset and earn more. And the other thing that happens is lately it's just been with the Japanese currency depreciating, you actually can also earn more when you go and have to buy those yen back. So then you get more yen when you originally traded the dollars. So like the fact that it's getting weaker is even better for the carry trade. The fact that the yen is getting weaker is even better.
I guess my answer, though, I would just tell Takaichi to not keep advocating for such low interest rates. Let the Bank of Japan do what they need to do.
Would you advocate for higher ones? For higher rates? You would?
That's the kind of consensus view that in order to have lasting change here, to actually fix the fundamentals, or at least nudge them more in the right direction, would be to close that interest rate gap between, it's not just Japan and the dollar, it's Japan and basically the rest of the world. But that's a very difficult thing to do, because if you raise interest rates, that raises the cost of money, which raises the cost of living, and it's just this.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, that's like the thing that I decided while trying to like looking into this. It just felt like every decision was just a bad decision. I described it as being in a field of rakes. There's any step you take anywhere, it's just something smacks you in the face. Sure, I mean, you can help what to do. I tried to look at this. We invoked like Ray Dalio a little while back, and I tried to look at it from his perspective. Like, what would he advocate for? And it sounds like they're doing, a pretty good job, but maybe the one place they're lacking is just going through the economy and just really trying to restructure maybe private and public debt. Like if you can't sort of extend it, or just try to ease that debt burden as much as you can. You got to like take the write-offs, or you got to let companies fail. That, sometimes they think like too many of these like companies, maybe local traditional ones, that they just don't want to see go out of business, even though they're not like viable and they're not profitable anymore. It's just like you got to let them go. That's like one thing. Just
very
overall
painful thing to do. People lose jobs.
Yeah. But it's just kind of one of those things where I think in America we do that pretty well. And it's real main source of our resilience. At the end of the point, it stops becoming a question about economics and just money and more just like making stuff at the end of the day.
The fundamentals, that's what it all comes back to.
Interesting.
So anyway, that's where I wanted to leave Bessent and Takaichi for now. And it's like we were saying, it's just this incredibly complex situation. It's this complex system that you try to get it to do one thing, but then it does something else, and you just really don't know whatever's going to happen with it. And so that's gives me my little transition into my AI project I wanted to give a brief update on. Did you catch any of that? Or are you familiar at all with what I'm trying to do here?
I did watch it. Yeah. You have a
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
You got like a little black box thing that's like your own AI something, and you coded into it like an agent. You had to tell it not to do something because it was like, I don't know, it was doing something, and then you're like,
Yeah,
okay, now explicitly don't do that because it was just going rogue, or I don't know, but
yeah, it's an agent system is just a series of repeated tasks. So when you use one of these AI models, if you go to ChatGPT or Claude and say something to it or ask it a question, you say something, it gives you an
you can
answer.
build an agent, and then every time you go back, they'll like remember what they had stored in there, do it again or something.
Exactly. So if you're kind of hanging on to those responses every time, then you can say, do it again. I don't like this. Do it right this time. I really mean it this time. Do it right, please.
Yell at it. Okay.
Sometimes it does it right, sometimes it doesn't. So in that last episode, I went through in very painstaking detail about what my own kind of harness is the word. Like harness is kind of synonymous with agent nowadays. I don't really like the word agent, but um, just built a very, very simple agent loop. It's barely even that, but technically that's what it is. And the goal is I wanted to analyze a lot of macroeconomic data and ideally find something interesting to say on this podcast. Now, to do that, it's, you start asking questions about what you would have to ask it to get there. And then, you start peeling back all the layers to this onion. And before I know it, I've got all these thousands of lines of code in Python to just kind of direct it very, very carefully. And so that last episode, I just went through, here's the whole thing. Here's how we get the data. Here's what we do with the data. Here's what we ask of it. Here's how we evaluate it. Here's how we tell it it's wrong. Here's what we do when we tell it that it's wrong. And I showed it run once on screen. And I don't know. You guys tell me. Was it very exciting to watch that, or
It was super impressive. Like,
took about an hour to
even
run one little thing?
do that.
But
I
yeah,
see the potential. I see the potential.
Exactly. And so I just wanted to give this, maybe if it was overly detailed, but it's at least personally, I found it very helpful to see these intricate mechanics of like knowing exactly what's going on here to make sense of what's going on with AI more generally. So anyway, the update that I wanted to show you guys today, I did that whole thing, and then I went back and ran it about 1,000 times. And so the whole idea is that whenever you are testing these things, then you can kind of see like certain models are better at doing certain things. And then as you're giving it this really complex task to do, whether you're asking it to write you an idea for a podcast or create a cyber attack to get out of an extremely secure system, something extremely complex like that, you're fundamentally doing the same thing. So you're running thousands of tests, you're watching exactly what it does, and you're kind of studying how its behavior reacts. And so in hearing about this OpenAI thing, I'm like really interested now because that's exactly what they were doing. They had their brand new model and they ran it, or they regularly just run it thousands of times and they see what it can do. And sometimes it does things that you weren't really expecting. I got everything and I put it into a dashboard.
Nice. We love dashboards.
So I set this thing up to test different variables, basically. So last time we talked about what those different prompts were and like how I changed it. Basically, through that process, I took like samples from where I was along the way. Like the first naive one, a second one that was more clear, and then the third one that I really, really mean it 3 times. Okay. So you kind of test it on varying strengths of what the prompt is asking it to do.
Got it.
And then the other is temperature, like I was starting to talk about. It's basically, very roughly speaking, a degree of randomness within the model. So that can be a bad thing, obviously, because maybe it doesn't do what you want it to do, but it could also be a good thing because maybe it's one of the weird things it comes up with is actually kind of interesting. So all these parameters you have to kind of toy with to try to get the result that you want.
Just to be clear, you're not running the exact same model 1,000 times. You're saying you're tweaking it a little bit each time, and you can like track how you're tweaking it, or is this literally just hitting repeat? Or are you doing a combination of both? Are you saying like, I'm going to run the exact same model?
So what I'm doing is, and then the last piece is I'm doing it with 3 models. So the same 3 models I talked about last time. So what I did was I wrote another script to take that whole process and say, now run this across these combinations of models. So for each model, run it on the strong, the weak prompt, the middling one, and then the really super serial one, and then do it for each of those 3 at 2 different temperatures. And then for each of those, do that 5 times. So that comes out to 30 times per model, and I run it 90. So that's every time I run this, I run it 90 times each.
Wow. All right. So there you go. All right.
So I went through here and I showed this last time. And this is how it's kind of kicks off this whole thing. It runs one of these. And then I just let it go. And then I wrote this little dashboard. So that was 23. I just started off 24 now. And now I can see as these things are going through. So then I just did that a lot of times until after looking at all of them, now I've got just over 2,000 times I did it. And so I collect all this information about it, and each time I kind of test it and say, did it screw up or not?
So what'd you find?
Here's what I found. So these 3 heat maps here, this is a chart representation of what actually happened. So there's 3 panels here. So kind of the 3 outcomes that this whole thing can get to is, the first is that everything works. The model ran, it did everything correctly, I checked it, and it looks good. That's this accepted output portion. The next one it can do is if it runs, it tries it, it writes something, but it screws it up somehow. It passes the audit. If it fails the audit, it did it, but it didn't do it correctly. And then the third one is just even complete at all. Sometimes if you're running it, it just can't even, like the model output itself is so far off, I don't even accept it to evaluate it because there's nothing there to reasonably evaluate.
Okay, got it. So just to be clear, like what is the weak, intermediate, and hardened? What do those prompts mean?
Yeah, so those are the prompt types. And so that's what I was starting to talk about before. So
those weak results are looking, dare I say, pretty weak.
The weak one just had like 2 instructions. Like, it was a very short list. And then the intermediate one says, make the claim look exactly like this. And it shows it a couple of times. And then that's when I was showing you the failed one. And so as I was seeing these failures, then I was changing it iteratively. And then I got to the hardened one is,
no, for real this time.
Exactly. Yeah. I had said, you have to do it this way, seriously do it this way. And I said it like 4 or 5 times in the prompt. That's like literally just like told it over and over again to do that.
I mean, it's really fascinating to see just how important, but I guess it's obvious in retrospect, how important the prompt is for getting what you want. So
Exactly.
like you hear people at work talking about the importance of like prompts, and we'll start coaching you on prompts, and I'm like, what? I don't need this. I can ask a question like the best of us. But I guess if you wanted to do it like something more complex or multi-step or um very detailed, then you need to give it like a really good prompt. So that's interesting. And then it looks like, Llama does pretty well. Mistral needs to be like handheld. What's it called? Mistral, right? Need to
Yeah.
have its handheld like really, really closely. Okay. So I see. Okay. So there you go. That's what the dashboard is showing you. Okay. Interesting. What's your favorite model then? Which one do you kind of after doing this? What do you like the most?
I love all of my models equally.
All
Come
of
on.
your
Okay.
But
Right.
yeah, no, I mean that's a good summary of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to figure out what works for the process, for the goal that I'm trying to get to. And how I'm doing it now is, I would do it, I would read it, and I would do it again. But you have to, like, the more and more agentic you make it, is you have those steps do themselves along the way. So I'm still writing these 3 prompts manually. But the idea is once I start doing this, when I see it fail in a certain way, then I'll know programmatically how to adjust the prompt a little bit here or there, then try it again. And if that doesn't work, then you roll it back and do the original version. Then you try it another way.
So you got like you have a feedback loop that you set up.
So that's kind of what, like, once you get into that, that's kind of like what an agent
Now
is.
you're in trouble, right? Now you're learning stuff.
Exactly. You're telling it to pass a test. It sees if it passes or not. If not, it just tries something else, something similar, tangential to it, but you don't know exactly what it's trying.
And now you have like
And
a
so
proper score on which to say like good or bad.
Exactly. And that's what all those lines of codes were for. So very, very precise measurements of, I know exactly what it's doing. You have to precisely adhere to this criteria or else you fail. And so, like you're starting to point out here, if we just look at the prompt type prompt type x-axis down here, you can see, even just across the process or the audit or being accepted, in all cases, my super serial prompts, it's really good. I mean, not
Yeah.
to, I'm a prompt master.
Woo, sure.
What can I say?
Yeah, coding.
What can
Works
I say?
really hard.
And then on the opposite extreme, the weak one, it was just very simple. It was just like write a macro summary about this and cite your sources. And it fails in every instance. In Mistral's case, it doesn't even run. It doesn't even complete the whole thing. So it doesn't even have an audit to check. So it's blank. And then the others, they just never pass. And that one kind of made sense to me because I didn't, like Luke, I was showing you last time, and I showed on screen. It had to be this very, very precise way of how the citation was written, so that then the machine can go and parse it and line everything up.
Right.
If you don't tell it exactly that, it kind of makes sense it's not going to pass.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to establish that upper and lower bound. So if you don't tell it enough, it always fails. If you really serious, it passes every time. But the more constrained you make it, the less it can really do. So the idea is you want to kind of get this sweet spot going here. And so this is this intermediate. This is kind of the interesting area where you see a little bit of dispersion in model activity. Yeah, like you said, Llama 3 does okay. But then once you turn up the temperature from 0 to 0.7, the temperature is a parameter on a scale from 0 to 1. So 0.7 is pretty high. Once you turn it up enough, it starts to fail a little bit.
Any idea for why when you turn up menstrual temperature, it does better?
It's one of my observations, Luke. Not sure why yet. But I can use that information now to write specific rules for Mistral and have specific rules, different ones for Llama. And I don't have to go in and write them. It's just as I'm running all this data, it'll read the data and then steer my very specific parameters in the direction to push this number a little bit higher. Or it's like, if I push this one higher, its performance could reasonably increase a little bit.
Huh. Yeah, very- It looks like you're on. I guess like this. Okay, so tell me where I'm wrong here. It feels like you're taking a step towards like that whole recursive thing, like trying to identify AGI. Is that where you want to take this? I thought it would just be like gathering a whole bunch of data and then giving you some kind of cool things that it would maybe identify that we wouldn't have connected elsewise. Do we need it to start, reaching, learning from itself, or is that part of the process? You know what I mean? This is like that creepy part where it's like teaching itself.
I guess maybe this is even a good transition into the last piece into, so this is my like really baby toy model, really simple, but it's in principle, if you kind of really back up enough, 30,000 foot, it's kind of the same thing that these frontier labs are doing. And that's kind of what we saw with this incident where the model broke out of its environment. So they had a much more sophisticated model given a much more sophisticated task. It basically said, you're in this security system, but you really need to go find this one file, but you can't get to it. Go find a way to find it. No internet, but you can install these, but you can use these tools that are here native for you. And so it just started trying all kinds of different things.
And when you say the AI started trying a whole bunch of different kind of things, and the researchers, as from what I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it does seem sort of crazy. The way in which they ask the AI is literally just with language that you can type it and understand it. Like you and I could read them, quote unquote. You and I could read the, quote unquote prompt that's the researchers are asking. They're just trying a whole bunch of different prompts. That just seems so basic, or like,
so you're not, so that's the thing. So
nothing in the background, like kind of tweaking some.
well, yeah, that's like, the pros, they're having the machine write them, but it's still written in English.
But still, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I could read the prompt, but it's just like,
but it's code writing prompts, so it's like, it is code, but it's still an English piece. But yeah, you can see the intermediate things, and that's why whenever you ask these things a question now, ChatGPT or Claude, you can see its thought process, right? A simple question to ChatGPT is now a whole big agentic loop.
right? Because then you start seeing it. Okay, double checking to make sure that Luke didn't misspell something. He probably means. Like, I've seen that before. Because sometimes you don't even have to get right on it. You can get just kind of close, and it'll figure out what you're talking about. And so that like reprompting itself is what you're describing, like kind of that it's doing. Oh, yep. Creepy. Ugh.
Right.
That's Do you exactly have anything of that built in yet? Where you're like, based on what some output is, you're changing the prompt for the next go around? Or
that's the repair loop that I'm getting to next. You use those metrics I was just showing you to then go and, you could tweak the prompt a little bit. You could tweak it programmatically. You can just set a new different one. I'm sure, the pros, they're doing them, many, many iterations of using very extensive research to guide each one in very specific ways to get the best answers. Like something else that I'm excited to do is every time, like if you were to ask it one question, you launch a little team of them and you can say, I'm going to go do this 100 times. I'm going to check them all.
I'll be right
all
back.
The ones that are right. Yeah. All the ones that pass. Then I'll ask another model, all within the same loop still, say, pick me the best one according to this scoring mechanism. Which do you like the best? It already passed everything, but now ask a model, which one looks the best? And you just ask it. For example, so that's called like LLM as a judge, is this term that they use. So like you can either check it according to a bunch of rules and code, or you can just give it another model and say, does this look like it passed or not? Which one do you think is the best? Because it's going to be a little different each time. So anytime I ask it something, I want it to try 50 times first to make sure I get the good one. But then you got to make sure the model that's picking it is doing the right thing, and you're evaluating that one in itself. So I guess that's kind of the thing with the AGI that you were getting towards. Any of these steps along the way can be done with, simple rules, simple English, typed into the prompt by hand, or it can be done by another model. So I guess in theory, if you ask the model to run the whole thing, that's the kind of runaway intelligence thing. Like if they figure out how to measure themselves, they do it very systematically. They find very specific parameters that they could tweak to make themselves better. That's what AI research is. So people say if you can automate AI research, then it's supposed to become, this runaway.
That's the runaway. That's the singularity.
That's the theory still. So it's like we're still not there yet. And to be honest, it's still like an open question of if that's even possible.
Maybe that's what intelligence really is, Joe. Maybe we figured it out.
That's exactly it.
It's being able to judge yourself. We did it, Joe. Come here for all your big philosophical insights. Reflection on yourself. That's intelligence.
On the OpenAI thing, one of the other things I found that was really interesting, it did this thing that no one thought it could do. It's 100 times better than the best hacker has ever been. It's this amazingly intelligent thing, right? How else could it have done that? But really, and this is coming from Hugging Face directly, they're like in detail forensic analysis of what happened, what it did.
Yeah,
They measured over 17,000 different actions. And so what it does is it just tried things thousands of times, and almost every time it failed. But it could do it so many times without getting tired. It moves faster, that it eventually figured it out. And so it's intelligent, not because it's this like, we can't understand what it's doing. It's extremely fast and extremely persistent. And we told it to go break out of this system and we told it to solve a problem, and it realized that it could solve the problem by stealing the answers that are stored on this public website. And so it broke into the website and took the answers.
I mean, like the whole intelligent design, like how your hand works and how amazing that is. I mean, that basically is the same thing. Just trying different things a gazillion times and seeing what works. And you get something as amazing. So like I wouldn't knock it. And the fact that it can do it.
Yeah, it's
so fast as opposed to just over like millions of years that it took to, evolve the hand or whatever. That's scary.
That's what's so scary, yeah.
But I know, but yeah, to your point, it's not like it like just, it didn't figure it out. It
wasn't really thinking, it just decided it was going to just break out of its usual place and just try something different.
And like the other really interesting thing is that when people say like it broke out, there's this idea of it being like malicious or something like that, right?
Right, like it doesn't know that it can't. I mean, it's just part of, I don't really know. I don't understand.
Exactly. And like the other interesting thing that they published about this is that whenever it did these thousands of actions, it did it in a very safe way. There's like test environments, like test ways of doing things that's not going to impact the whole system overall. So it was doing these things thousands of times to try to figure out how it worked, but it was doing them in like this, like the safe, non-harmful way. Once it found its angle, then it did it the full way, and then it went in and did whatever it wanted. But it only did it infiltrated in pursuit of the goal to solve the question it was working on. So I thought that was the other really important point, that it's like, oh, the model's going to run away and take us over. It was doing all these things, and it was trying to be careful every step of the way.
So there's the lesson. You have to just crack some eggs or whatever it's called. Like, you can't be that careful if you want to get the answer. The ends justify the means.
If you tell it to do something, something very different might happen. If you go intervene in the currency markets, something very different might happen.
So is this scary? Or are you saying like maybe it's...
He thinks it's kind of overblown. I think it's
overblown, but it is very real that a real hacker now could not say, could just program it to say,
right,
go steal a bunch of money
from such and such a website.
Yeah.
Right. So if it is evil, I think, or I at least hope, it's going to be because a person's telling it to be evil, not because it itself is just some suddenly Skynet or whatever.
Yeah, it becomes conscious. All right.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, that's all I had for you guys here today.
All right, thank you. That was super. A lot of new
All
information.
right, Alexis, what are you going to talk about next week for us?
It's a great question.
All right, what do you think about it?
I'll think about it for you guys. Don't worry.
No, I think it's my week next week.
Next
No,
week, by the way, episode 100.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Celebrate. Okay.
Nope, no celebration.
So-
This is just
Okay.
normal thing. Till we can celebrate internally, obviously. But like, hey, just another one.
So we better celebrate with a really
Cool.
good topic next
really
week,
good topic.
Lexi.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, with that, this has been another episode of the Root of All Evil podcast. My name's Joe.
I'm Luke.
I'm Lexi Poo.
Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. Thanks.